Hi beautiful listeners, Anisa here. Welcome to another episode of Stars in My Pocket. In this drama deep dive, Paroma and I discuss the excellent 2017 family drama Father is Strange with our friend and special guest LollyPip. We had a blast laughing and squeeing over the wonderful family and smartly drawn characters at the heart of this unusually thoughtful weekend drama. Just a couple of notes. We recorded this back in February, which is why some of the recent events we refer to are now old news. Also, there were some audio issues on LollyPip's end, which we did our best to minimize, so we do apologize for that in advance. And with that, enjoy the episode!
You be in my heart. You be in my heart.
Hi, this is Anisa.
This is Paroma.
And today we have lovely guest, the amazing LollyPip, joining us to discuss Father Strange, which we all agree was last year's best family drama.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, yeah, I'm very sorry for being hyper. So, Father Strange is a family drama, as I said, with an average enough premise but a far above average execution. I think we can all agree. Mm-hmm. The main premise is that Lee Joon plays Joong-hee, an idol-turned-actor, though not a very good one, who finds whom he thinks is the father who abandoned him, except that it is a case of mistaken identity that's going to have serious consequences for both Joong-hee and the family whose life his appearance turns upside down. So, let's share our general thoughts on this. LollyPip, what did you think? Sorry.
I don't watch family dramas very often because I don't have a lot of free time to watch dramas that I'm not, recapping. So, but I just kept hearing about this one everywhere. I was hearing about it on Drama Beans. I was hearing about it on Twitter. I was hearing about it everywhere. So I decided, and I've been a fan of Lee Joon for a while, so I decided to check it out. And I was pretty much hooked about halfway through the first episode.
Yeah.
What about you, Paroma? What did you think of it?
I agree. This is one of the few dramas where I didn't have to wait 2 episodes to decide whether I want to go on with it. I knew within the first 10 minutes that I was going to watch the entire thing. It was just, there was something so magnetic about this family, and they just started with a simple morning. Like, you were watching this father, he was, I think, cooking in his shop, right? That's how the drama started. And his wife was sleeping, so he calls her up. It's such a quiet, sort of a regular morning for them. Then the eldest daughter wakes up and nobody can go to the bathroom because somebody is occupying it, and she has to go to a sauna to wash her hair. It's just everything. There was humor there, and you could. It's a family that has certain dysfunctions, but it's a working. It's a work. All the relationships are functioning as they would in real life. So there was something about it that hooked me pretty much immediately.
Yeah, for me, I kind of knew I would probably want to watch it just because of the cast, especially Yuri and Lee Joon, because I like them both so much, and also Jung So-min, which I think she hadn't done a drama in a while when she did this. Now she's come back and done another one after this too. But that was because this is your first life. But yeah, you guys are right. It's as soon as you watch the first few minutes of the first episode, you're like, oh, this is a real family that I want to spend, that I'm willing to spend 50 hours with, which normally with a family drama, you have a lot of characters that you're kind of like, oh, let me just skip these people's scenes to get to the main couple or the one interesting storyline. I don't think I've watched a drama that had such an engaging family, every member of the family, since I watched Ojakkyo Brothers.
Usually you have, which had the son-in-law as one of the brothers, right? I just recently watched an episode of it.
That's true. He was in that one too. Maybe he's the magic component. He was so good in this too.
And the funny thing is, usually with longer dramas, you have certain subplots that you skip. I didn't skip any part of this drama. Not 1 minute. I didn't have a single character that was so, bored about that I would want to, miss their plot.
I don't normally fast forward through sections because I always feel like there's somebody's going to say something or do something that I'm going to need to know later. But, there's usually parts where I'm just like, ugh, this guy or this couple again. And there was never any of that.
Yeah.
So true. I mean, for me, the only thing is that the youngest sister in the beginning, I found her a little bit hard to take, and I did kind of skip some of her parts, though not a lot, because I'm the same way. I'm like obsessive about hearing every line of dialogue because I feel like somebody's going to say something that's going to matter later, and then like I'm not going to know. But I was a little bit not that into her storyline in the beginning, but even her by the end, she becomes so lovable and like
She
Sorry,
was
go ahead.
definitely interesting, but then she had on Joseph, so he made her a
her
lot
love
more
line?
interesting herself.
Yeah. Oh my god, he was so cute.
But his acting was pretty rough, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, but he didn't really need to act, right? The kind of role he had, he just had to look pretty, which he did.
That's true. Yeah, he was just like a soccer-playing, handsome block of wood.
This is actually the third drama that I've recapped him in.
Oh, really?
I mean, not that I recapped this one. That's not what I meant. I meant I've recapped him in 2 dramas.
Oh, okay.
I'm bad with names. I recapped him in One More Happy Ending, where he was in the Nuno romance, and then also in Entertainer. He was the lead guy of the other K-pop group who kept getting in trouble. And I actually felt like he's improving slowly, but he is improving. I'm not sure he's ready for his first main role coming up, but he's with Kim Yoo-jung, who tends to elevate whoever she's with a bit.
That's true.
So I'm hoping that'll help.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't actually know most of the cast here. For instance, I haven't seen anything with Jang So-min in it. But, Lee Joon, I think I've only seen that one. He did a woman with a suitcase, I think. I recapped that early last year.
That's right.
And he was the second lead. And he was wasted there. But his adorableness did not go unnoticed. So, yeah.
His adorableness never goes unnoticed.
No, it does not. That is true. Though for the first couple of episodes, he was just really hard to watch here, like in this drama, because he was playing. He almost seemed narcissistic in the first few episodes, right? And he really craved attention, and he wasn't getting it, and he was pouty, and he was just a pain in the ass for his manager. So he's not a generally likable guy. So
he thought he was better than he was.
Sorry?
I said he thought he was better than he was, his acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, initially, yeah. But no, on the other hand, he seemed to think that he had more star power than he actually had, but he seemed to also be aware that he was not a good actor. So that was...
Yeah, that's true, actually. He kind of has that, like, star disease where he, like, really is full of himself, but he kind of, on some level, understands that he's not actually a good actor, and it's, like, kind of kills him, but he's too proud to admit it in front of anybody, even his manager.
Yeah. But, for me, in this drama, the main, the protagonists, I guess, even though there are so many protagonists, if you were to look at it that way, the main actors whose plots and emotions I was following, probably Lee Joon, yes, the story really focused on him towards the second half of the drama, but also Lee Hyuri's Byun Hye-young. She had to be the person who was whenever the drama got slow, she was the one who was pulling me through. And I just waited for her to come on screen. She lit up my screen. It was so much fun watching her. I don't think she made a single false step. Like the way her character was written, it stayed consistent from the beginning to the end. I mean, even when she did inexplicable things, it made sense in context after a while. So yeah, she was awesome.
That was one of the real strengths of the whole show in general, was that there was never any point where you went, why are they doing that? You might go, why are they doing that? I would never do that. But you understood why they were doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, they did a really good job of, even though there are so many characters and it's hard to fully flesh out that many characters, but somehow they managed to do it. And I think they also got really lucky with the casting of almost everyone in this show, because they were so perfectly cast, and they were able to elevate even like very regular everyday dialogue about like, having to wait in line for the bathroom, or like, little daily things like, fighting with each other, like the sisters, the way they fought with each other but still loved each other, or like with their relationship with their parents. Like they infused it with so much real feeling of actually you could buy these people as a family. I think that was really great, the chemistry of everybody together.
And then when it gets to that, the family, when they would bring a new person into the family, like the oldest brother's wife, there was never any like big turning point of when she went from being an outsider to an insider. It just kind of naturally happened.
True. Yeah,
which I like, which is more realistic.
Yeah, it was, for sure. And like there's a lot of like with family dramas, because I do watch I think more of them than either of you do, maybe. I watched, Life is, it was like Wonderful Life a couple years ago with Kim Hee-sun and the guy with the dimples, what's his name? The one who goes on all those trips with Na PD. I can't remember his name right now, I'm sorry. But there was that one that was very like low key and kind of mellow, which was unusual for family drama. And then I also watched like Five Kids, I think 2016. And those were like generally on the better side, but I always find with family dramas that sometimes I have to stop watching them because they're just they elevate certain conflicts into that stereotypical like evil mother-in-law versus daughter-in-law, or like the birth secret. That was why I stopped watching the one with IU and
Ojakkyo Brothers?
No, there was one with IU a few years ago about like IU, and I think she had some kind of like, she wanted to be an actress, and then she had like two moms, and there was a birth secret with her original mom who was like this really famous actress, and then she finds her again. It was just...
That's actually one of the only 3 daily dramas that I've finished.
Oh, okay, yeah. For some reason the title is escaping me, but you know which one that is, right?
Basic Thing.
Yes, that's right. And I find that a lot of times, instead of focusing on the actual real drama of like everyday life, which can be extremely difficult, and like dealing with family can be pretty dramatic and difficult sometimes, but if you just portray it in a realistic way, there's enough drama in that to carry your story. You don't have to go to like extreme circumstances and like murder plot lines and screaming and like physical fights, and which was like where I feel like a lot of these daily dramas and weekend dramas end up kind of going, and then it's no longer an interesting story. It's just...
Agreed.
Yeah. So they did a really good job of taking daily conflicts that we faced in our own lives and that we can all relate to, but making it really affecting and emotional. And then there's also this very unrealistic plot line that's kind of at the base of everything else. So why don't we talk about that? I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that premise.
On the plot line, like the very basic one about the parents, because that could take an entire podcast to discuss.
Well, we don't have the whole thing, but I think we should definitely talk about it because it's kind of the main.
Okay, so how convinced were you guys that Dad had sufficient reason to take another man's name and live with it for 35 years? I mean, how convincing were his reasons for you guys?
I thought that the motivation was convincing. I thought it was interesting that it was Mom, actually, whose idea it was, and who convinced him to go through with it. I wasn't entirely convinced that they were able to pull it off for so long, so easily. They sort of glossed over that, the 34 years in the meantime. But I felt like at the time, and with probably the political climate in South Korea at the time, that he had a wife and a child to support, and he couldn't nobody would hire him. And he was being, arrested for things he didn't even do. So I can see how it would be very tempting to say, I'm in this perfect position to start my life over again. And, and to at least attempt to go through with it.
Yeah, I do agree that it's a little bit stretching the plausibility to think that no one ever noticed any kind of inconsistencies this whole time. But you're right that the motivation was kind of believable, and also he tried to go and confess a bunch of times, but his wife stopped him. So I wasn't as mad at him as I kind of was at the mom at certain points. But then at the same time, like, it kind of puts all the blame on the mom, which is kind of, they're both equally responsible, but I felt like sometimes they were making the dad out to be like this really noble, self-sacrificing guy who just, wants to be there for his family, and his wife is like the selfish one, which I kind of, like, it made me hate her a little bit, but then I was also like, why am I hating her? They're both, I don't know. I was a little bit conflicted about that.
I felt like she was in a situation where she was so helpless, and there was nothing she could do. And this was her thing that she could do to try to change their situation, was to convince him to live this way. And that she was acting out of, desperation, love of a man that she knew was a good man, and who deserved to live the life of a good man. So I could feel that. I felt like she acted out of desperation, but also out of just wanting the world to know that this man was a good man.
I guess actually I didn't have an issue with it when the kids were little, and I can understand, like, they just had a baby and they were young and they were starting out. For me, what was more difficult for me to accept was once they saw Joong-hee, because they also didn't know that Joong-hee existed. So they didn't know how much harm that their decision was going to cause. But, like, once he showed up and they knew that they have to confess at a certain point, like, the truth is eventually going to come out, I was that unhappy with the fact that they kept on dragging it on. So, because, like, the kids are all grown up, and sure, it's going to be tough for them, but I couldn't justify it when they were like, yeah, let's not tell anyone yet. Let's wait. Let's not tell Joong-hee. Like, they could have at least told him and let him make the decision. That was kind of hard for me to accept.
They made the decision they made because they didn't know how far it was going to, they didn't realize it was a snowball like that. And they didn't realize it was going to become this, like, national issue. They didn't know, at the time they were working with a little known B actor. Right. And they didn't realize he was going to get super famous really fast, and all of a sudden their family was going to be in the spotlight. So I felt like they were making the decisions that made sense at the time, but they weren't really thinking about what could go wrong. They never thought, how could this possibly backfire on us?
But, that doesn't, even if Lee Joon's character had never gotten big, he had a mom who was alive, and he was presumably in touch with the mom. And wouldn't he sooner or later mention to his mom that I found my dad? And wouldn't the mom therefore at least want to be, because this couple knows that Hyun-soo, the original Hyun-soo, had disappeared without a word. Like, suddenly he just up and left America and went to Korea and, like, said not another word to his ex-wife and never tried to contact his child. So maybe the mom would have some questions. It's just, there were a few logical steps that they just didn't make, and maybe we can argue that they were deluding themselves. Because the dad had already decided that he wanted to include Joong-hee in their family, and like, when he first made that offer to Joong-hee, he didn't actually think Joong-hee would accept. And even Joong-hee didn't think he would accept. So, like, the way they were building up the moments, and I like this, it was kind of, they were being, what do you call that? When you do something and you don't think much before that? Not whimsical.
Spontaneous?
Yeah, spontaneous, but another word for that?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say.
I do agree that was one of my favorite moments when Joong-hee said, I want to move in with you, and Dad was like, okay. And then they both went away and were like, whoa, I did not Especially
Joong-hee, that was pretty great.
With his tortoise, Al, where he was like, now we have to move, dang it.
Yeah, he's like in that tiny, old, nasty building. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
That whole, like, part where he, like, first moves in and he's, like, brought all his stuff and they're, like, glaring at him for, like, being so spoiled, and he's completely oblivious and he, like, needs his bidet and stuff.
And that's everything he talks about the bidet. It just killed me.
Oh my god, the breakfast table conversation about the bidet. That was amazing.
That was best.
I think, to go back to the parents, I think they did a really good job with the writing and the aspect of you could understand why they were doing what they were doing. I think for me, I felt so bad for Joong-hee, especially there's this one scene where he tells the dad, like, I want to have a drink with you. And then he gets, like, really drunk. And he tells him all the feelings that he'd had growing up, you know, and what it was like to not have a father, and with the knowledge that his father abandoned him, and that he never once came to see him or called him or cared about him. And, like, I was like, maybe you should tell him now. You know, like, up until now, I could believe, like, why you wanted to reduce harm, but, like, you're not reducing harm anymore. Like, you're hurting this kid so much where, like, his actual dad didn't do that to him. He just died and he couldn't do all of that, you know?
But, you know,
there were so many times like that where I wanted the dad to say something, either confess or speak as a father and speak as to what he thought his friend would have said if he had been confronted with his son that way. And he would just cry and say nothing. And that was really frustrating.
That was frustrating. Or you could have at least just said, I didn't know that you existed, or something, you know, like, just to comfort him a little bit.
But here we have a liar who's living a lie, but he's really bad at lying. So that way, this was very consistent with this character. But, you know, I disagree. I don't think him not saying anything at that moment, I know it's bad, like from an ethical point of view, it was bad. But the harm that Han-soo and his wife had already done to this boy was not going to change. But Joong-hee still had a lot of anger to work through. And that month or 2 months, I think, or 3 months he lived in that house before finding out the truth, those 3 months let him work that anger out. He had a person he could take that out on. And I think if Han-soo hadn't done that, if he had just met Joong-hee and told him the truth, then Joong-hee would have had all that anger at being abandoned, and then the anger would have gone nowhere because he would have suddenly found out that his father had died 35 years ago, 20 years ago, and 35 years ago, right? And that, you know, he had no reason to actually be angry because his father hadn't abandoned him. All that anger would have gone anywhere. It would have just settled in his chest, and he would have not had closure, I think. But these 3 months.
I agree that it wasn't, maybe if I think about it from the angle of not so much that Joong-hee needed to hear something, but he just needed to say what he wanted to say for his whole life.
Yeah. And I think Han-soo, like fake Han-soo was really good, I don't know, a punching bag. He was a good punching bag. And he allowed Joong-hee to punch him as much as he needed to. So, like overall, the healthiest thing he could have done after all the damage he had already done.
Maybe. I guess, when you express it that way, I can see it from that point of view. I think I'm just one of those people who is, like, obsessed with always having everybody put what they feel out on the table, because I'm one of those, like, hard on my sleeve. Yeah, I'm like, let's talk about it, because ignoring the issue doesn't go away. Like, that's just my personality. So when I see people in dramas that just don't talk, and I'm like, just have a conversation, things will work out so much better.
I agree.
That's just always my instinct.
But I think in this particular case, it's just the characters who were involved. Like, Hyun-soo is not a person who talks it out. He's not a very frank man. He keeps things suppressed. That's just part of his character. So for him to have lived that life for so long and then suddenly come and blurt it out when he also has, you know, the pressure of having his entire family see him in a certain way and know that would change the moment the truth came out. He's not the kind of man who could have dealt with it in a straightforward manner. We've also seen instances in the beginning of the drama where he and Young-shil, right, his wife, they were walking down the street and he sees a man and he suddenly becomes quiet and withdrawn, and she asks him, does this still happen to you? Like, he still has like PTSD from his time long ago. This guy is not going to be someone who's upfront about any issue.
His survival depended on keeping his mouth shut for 35 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And on kind of being a hermit from society. He just, like, stays in his, his shop behind the counter, cooking and taking care of his kids and his wife, and, like, because he doesn't really want to take the chance of anyone recognizing him or remembering him, or, So that's true. He's kind of just been protecting himself like a turtle, like Al.
Like Al.
So what did you guys think about the parents having done what they have done, taking the moral high ground when it came to issues with their kids? Because that really bugged me.
Oh, yes. That drove me nuts. I have to agree with that.
Yes, I definitely agree.
Like when the oldest son's wife shows up and they're like, you got pregnant before marriage? And at first I was like, okay, these are just very traditional parents who are shocked. And then you find out later that not only did they also get pregnant before marriage, they stole somebody's identity.
And also,
gave their children fake last names.
Can I point this out? They never got married. Not until the last episode. Young-soo and Young-soo got never legally married because Young-soo had a false identity. So technically, all of the kids were before marriage. So, yeah.
On the other hand, I can kind of understand it because I have a very close-knit family. My parents are still very involved in what goes on with my life and my sister's life. And, they tell us all the time, don't make my mistakes. They're telling you, I made this mistake and I regret it and I don't want you to make the same mistake I did. So maybe that's the angle they were coming from.
But for them, for their kids, they had always presented this very perfect picture of how they got together, and
true.
Their kids didn't know that that the oldest son had been conceived before they, quote unquote, got married, at least in the eyes of the world. So if they had admitted that and been like, yeah, when we got married, your brother was only 7 months old, but but they had this perfect family charade because it was part of their whole act that they had to play out, and that was one of the things. It's they just wanted everything to be smooth and for nothing to really stick out, because then they might get noticed and people might start talking, and then that would create more of an issue for them.
So yeah, that bugged me.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with that.
Let's talk about the cohabitation thing, please, because that was fun.
Oh, Joong-hee living with them, you mean?
Yeah,
that was awesome.
And also
in every way.
Because when he first started living with them, and he was still treating Mi-young, Byun Hye-young, as his manager in their house, the way the rest of the siblings would turn on him, it would be like, she's not at work right now. I really loved it. Just that every single scene added onto their dynamics, right? And that was the first scene, after he came in and they were all sitting together at the table, that I realized that this family is actually really close knit. Every time they had a force from outside coming in to quote unquote attack the family, the members of the family would show how much they care about each other, through arguments or other stuff, but they would be there for each other. Any time a storm came, everybody would just drop everything and come back to the house to make sure that everybody else was okay. So
I just loved how the mom would just send out a text and be like, tonight, family meeting, and they would just all show up no matter what else was happening.
Yeah, that was great.
There are so many great little details like that which we don't normally get in family dramas, where when something happens, all the sisters would go into the one sister's bedroom and they would have a little mini conference. I totally do that with my sister. Sometimes we just go in a corner and close the door and okay, what's going on? What are we gonna, and I don't normally see that in family dramas. Everybody just has their own separate plot line. The siblings don't really interact that much because they're too busy with their romantic drama. And I just find that's very unrealistic. So I love that.
Yeah. And how about the fact that siblings couldn't seem to keep each other's secrets, not for more than 5 minutes?
I mean, I think that's pretty realistic, to be honest.
Yeah, I hear more about my little sister, through my mother than I do through my sister. And we all three of us live on the same street. So, yeah, I think that's really realistic.
It is. It's also that thing of it's really, I don't know about you guys, but I have a really hard time keeping anything from my mom. Moms just have this way of finding out whether you want them to or not. So you just, at one point you're just it's a losing battle. I'm just going to give up.
Uh-huh.
Can we talk about Leary's character? Because I loved her so much.
Yeah, and
I actually didn't first. I felt like I'm the oldest sister. in part of my family, it's a weird dynamic that I have a younger sister, and maybe I just saw a lot of myself in her, the bossiness and the I know what's best and just listen to what I'm telling you, all of that she did with her younger siblings. She was really not arrogant, that's not what I mean, but just she just really stood very firm in her rightness. And she knew she was right. But then the more you get to know her, you realize that she's not being arrogant. She's not being, a bossy big sister. That's just her personality, first of all, but she also, most of the time, is really actually right.
Yeah. and
confidence enough to tell everybody that she knows that she's right and not to back down. And I love that about her.
Yeah. And I did also find that a little bit off-putting at the beginning because she did seem a little bit conceited and she kind of steamrolls over other people's words sometimes, although this gets better as the drama goes along. But when you also find out about how tough things were when they were growing up and how she was so smart, and even though they were very poor and they didn't really have there was no support from her at home, academically, she got, really good grades. She got all of her own scholarship money to go to a really good school. And so you can see why she's had to become so tough, in order to be successful, especially as a woman. And it's just you just really admire her, and you realize that all her siblings look up to her. Even her older brother looks up to her, even though he's supposed to be the oldest, but he's kind of, poor guy, he's kind of the loser in the family. So she's had to kind of take on that oldest sibling role, and she does it really well.
It was interesting because I felt like I was judging her from a Western viewpoint at first, and so then when I thought about it, like you said, she had to put herself through school. She is living in a society and in a profession where if you show the slightest bit of weakness, you're just going to get torn to pieces. Yeah. So she just has learned not to show weakness. But she doesn't ever use it against people. That was when I finally started liking her, was when I realized that she never uses that against people. She doesn't manipulate people. She does a little bit later with her mother-in-law, but she does it for a good purpose. She has intentions.
And she doesn't do it to people who are in a... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying that even when she does it to her mother-in-law, she's pretty frank about it. It's not she's transparent about it. Her mother-in-law can actually work out exactly where she's being played, but the lady just doesn't. And it's not like she's deceiving her, she's just using her own rules against her. So...
Yeah. And also Hyang doesn't use that kind of technique on people who are in a position of weakness relative to her. She only does it to somebody who's trying to take advantage of her, or somebody who's in a higher position and she's the one at the disadvantage. So I can admire that, she's punching up, she's not punching down.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a good point.
And I loved how she brought her whole her professional expertise into her marriage negotiations. That was amazing. That was beautifully done. And I've never been more interested in watching a legal scene unfold in a drama. That was when she was discussing all the points with her in-laws about what their boundaries should be and stuff. That was scintillating, and I was not expecting that.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was hilarious. And I've also never been this invested or interested in one of those storylines of they used to love each other back in the day and then they met again and they reunited, they hate each other and then they slowly fall in love again. It's such a played out, at least to me, I don't find that dynamic very interesting because they're just going to face the same relationship problems that they did in the past, and they're going to have to work over it again, and they're going to have the same arguments, but they did it in such a smart and good way. And these two were so good together.
Oh my God, yeah.
I was actually a little bit worried when they first started treating the marriage as a contract and a test, almost. And I thought, oh, this is going to be bad because they're taking all the emotion out of it. But they somehow managed to stay emotionally connected, but yet still be hey, you broke a rule, or I broke a rule. And they didn't let it alter the way they felt about each other.
They didn't make it physical.
It was really smart.
Yeah. And it was a really smart way of doing a contract relationship because usually the setup that we're used to is it's two people who don't have any feelings for each other, or if they do, they're hiding them, who are kind of forced into this situation, into this contract relationship or marriage, and they slowly fall in love with each other, but they don't want to tell the other person that what they feel is real. But in this one, they knew that they had feelings for each other, and that wasn't even Hae-young's issue. She was like, I don't trust this institution of marriage because it hasn't historically been good for women. And he can't really argue with her because it's kind of true, you know, especially in that, and you know, when she shows him like examples in their culture, he's like, yeah, that's what's he going to say? And like, who's ever going to like win an argument against Hae-young? So because she had
was how much he respected her feelings and her opinions and her expertise.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
So much respect.
Oh my god, every time she got a win, like she would argue with someone and win, he had the proudest smile on his face. That was adorable.
It's so great because there's all this like toxic conventional quote unquote wisdom of like how like men don't like smart women or men don't like women who can speak for themselves or have like, you know, who are outspoken. And it's just so refreshing to see them on screen and be like, yes, there are couples like this. And there are like actually men out there who will respect you for being smart and maybe a little bit bossy. But I think he's okay with it.
Whenever she would argue him, you could watch on his face him falling even deeper in love with her.
Yeah. Oh my god, he did it so well.
Yeah, that was really great. Any other characters that you guys really enjoyed or hated?
I sort of connected to what we were just talking about. I love watching the mother-in-law fall in love with Lee Joon's character. Like
that is true. Yes.
What was her name? The actress Song Hyuk-suk. Right, Song Hyuk-suk. I forget her name in the drama though. What was it?
Ojakkyo.
Ojakkyo. I loved watching her fall because it was just like everything that she was worried about, that her daughter-in-law was going to be too confrontational, her daughter-in-law was going to not listen to her and stuff. It was kind of true, but on the other hand, her daughter-in-law did like way more than she probably could have expected from like Hae-young's character was very beautiful. Like when it came to all the things she thought that a daughter-in-law needed to do for her mother-in-law, she did all of those things. It's just that she would not be she would not what is that term? Pushed over, rolled over, walked over.
Yeah. She didn't just allow her mother-in-law to just take over her will and order her around the way that a lot of mother-in-laws desire, unfortunately. So.
But given how the mother-in-law and father-in-law's marriage thing was going, and how much her son and daughter-in-law, the part they played in bringing them back together. I guess it was fun watching her realize that, hey, there are benefits to having a smart lawyer as a daughter-in-law. That was something.
I liked that Hae-young's answer to the in-laws issue of not getting along with the in-laws was not to just get away from them, but to just bring them back together and give them something else to think about besides her own marriage.
I also really liked how most family dramas are they kind of reinforce the traditional values. They reinforce the traditional family structure. Sometimes some of them are kind of go outside of that, but it's interesting how like a lot of the female characters were either subtly or overtly pushing back against patriarchy in different ways, but that didn't mean that they all had to live the same kind of life. And I really liked that. And even with this, daughter-in-law and mother-in-law relationship, like once they kind of were on the same page, I loved how Hae-young was like, you shouldn't put up with this kind of treatment from your husband. Like, you don't have to put up with it. You can change the dynamic, this like unhealthy dynamic that you've had going on for all these years. Whereas before he was just like, I made all the money, even though like his wife did so much for him, and maybe she was a little bit like not very intelligent, but he looked down on her and he kind of treated her like garbage. And I liked how she kind of regained her confidence and regained her kind of will to be her own person. And it was through Hae-young's kind of help that she did that. I really liked that.
Yeah. The show had a lot of great, I liked how, even though it was called Father is Strange and it was about Joong-hee's story, but it was really very, other than that, it was really very female-centric.
Yeah, it was.
The women were the ones making things happen.
True. Like all the women cast here, from the main three in the main four in the family, to the mother-in-law Ojakkyo and the new daughter-in-law Kim Yoo-joo. They were all plot movers. They were taking the story forward, and it was their story more than Joong-hee's, like you said. Which brings me to Kim Yoo-joo. I loved her character. I loved that when she was first introduced. I thought she was just going to be this bully supporting character that Byun Mi-young has to overcome to sort of gain her working woman confidence or something. And then she starts dating the brother, and at that point I was like, oh, so she's like the vampish, evil, I don't know, girlfriend that who has to, Byun Mi-young will have to like somehow get her brother out of her clutches. But no, the drama didn't go that way. She became her sister-in-law. And then these two had, I really liked how they managed the whole bully and victim relationship. That Byun Mi-young didn't want to confront Kim Yoo-joo initially, but then when she did, Kim Yoo-joo apologized because she loved her brother so much and not because she actually felt apologetic. It was almost towards the end of the drama when she finally realized what she had done to Byun Mi-young and then apologized sincerely.
It was when she saw the other mean girls from school treating Mi-young that way that she realized, wow, that is really ugly, and I'm the one and I was the worst one. And that was when she had that turnaround and was like, wow, I really do need to look at the way I've been. I was actually mad at the beginning, at not at the character, but I'm a big fan of Yoo-joo as a character actor. And I was like, great, now we're going to get just the typical mean girl. And I felt like it was a waste of her acting talent. And so it was really neat to see by the end of the show, like how really well she handled her character growth and how much she changed without it ever feeling like just an abrupt, like didn't make any sense. It made a lot of sense.
Yeah, it never got preachy.
No, yeah, they did such a great job with her arc, and I agree with you, LollyPip. It did feel like she was a little bit wasted in the beginning, but now after we've seen the whole drama and what kind of journey she had to take, that was a really great casting choice. I think they did a great job in choosing her, and she always is so good.
And I also like that her the other conflict that she faced in the workplace, that was really realistic. Initially, I was like, wait, why is she taking every single mention of her being pregnant to heart like this? And then I was speaking to a friend of mine who does work in the fashion industry, and she was like, there's good reason for this, because you do have to carry weight a lot, you have to move around a lot, there's just a lot of physical effort that goes into this job, and people do look at you like you're a fragile being if you get pregnant in this stage, and that can have a serious have serious consequences on your career. So it makes sense.
And added to that, if you look at the statistics for women who, a lot of women in Korea, they just quit their jobs after they get married, or they quit after they get pregnant and they never go back. It's bad, I think, everywhere in the working corporate world. I think it's bad everywhere, but if you look at the statistics, they're particularly bad in South Korea. So yeah, you can definitely understand.
And I was also surprised at how many dramas, when they are showing you the interview process, the interviewers, in Korean dramas, the interviewers always ask, do you plan on getting married? Do you have a boyfriend? As if that has any relevance to your job. But they are asking that to see how long would you actually be working for this company. If you're planning on getting married in the next 5 years, maybe that's how long you're going to be working. So they actually take that into consideration when they are, thinking of giving you a job. So, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, here I'm sure people do that too, but you're not actually allowed to ask those questions in interviews, I don't think.
We haven't talked about Mi-young at all, hardly. She's a hard character to talk about, I think, because she was and it's very strange for me because I'm used to seeing Jung So-min in kind of spunky, kind of, more outspoken characters. Mm-hmm. And so it was really interesting to me to see her in this and being so quiet and almost mouthy. it made sense considering her two sisters, but I kept expecting her to change and become more outgoing, and she really didn't. And I actually thought that was a good thing, because not everybody has to totally change their personality, you know.
Yeah. And you could see that it was something that she they didn't just make her into a personality type that was like a stereotype. They gave her a real personality, and you could see who she was and her past, and how like all the things that she had gone through had shaped her into that person, but also that, you know, how she struggled with the fact that it was hard for her to speak up, and it was hard for her to face the people that, you know, said horrible things to her, and like she was able to kind of overcome that but still remain who she was and true to herself. That was, I agree, really nice. What was
interesting about her for me is that we're so used to, in Korean dramas, seeing people, they are a certain way, and then they face challenges and they change, and then they conquer those challenges because they change. And Mi-young was the other way around. She handled her challenges within the boundaries of her own personality. She wasn't willing to change who she was in order to win. You know, she stayed true to herself, and I thought that was really interesting. I thought it was really telling when she suddenly had, you know, she was in a position in school of being submissive to Yoo-joo, and then she ends up in the workplace in the exact same position, only worse, because now Yoo-joo's her boss almost.
Yeah.
And then she all of a sudden got a little bit of authority when she found out that Yoo-joo was going to be the new member of her family, and she had a little bit of say in what happened. You know, she could have said, "No, I don't agree with you joining my family," and she could have told on Yoo-joo to her brother. And I thought it was interesting that she enacted the change that she needed for herself by using that information to sort of guide Yoo-joo into, at least if not changing, at least if you're going to be in my house, you're going to act different.
Yeah. Yeah, and that takes a lot of strength. And you could even say that it takes more strength to do that than to just have one big confrontation and just tell everything. Whereas now she had to like see her every day and live with her every day and give her the respect that was required of an older sister-in-law, you know, like, but she was willing to do that because she wanted her brother to be happy. And so her thing was like, as long as you sincerely love my brother and he's going to be happy with you, and you can, you know, treat our family with the respect that they deserve, like whatever we had between us, like I'm willing to let that go, which that takes a lot of strength for character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As perfect as the stories, like as deep as they were, as deep as the writing has been, there were certain moments in this drama that were pretty ridiculous plot devices, I guess. Do you guys remember that scene where Joong-hee was kind of asked to kiss Mi-young, or was Mi-young? Oh yeah, Mi-young was asked to kiss Joong-hee so he could have like lipstick marks on his face.
Oh my god.
That was, and the director was standing like 2 feet away from them watching. That was so uncomfortable to watch.
Tell a quick funny story though. I have had that happen to me because I used to be an actor, and I was in that situation. I was where I was acting opposite a guy that I liked, and we had to do a scene where it was a little bit different. We had to do a scene where it was supposed to be like a kissing scene, but the lights would go out, and then I had to real quick kiss him on his face in a few different places before the lights came up on stage.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we ended up dating for about a year.
Oh.
So that is actually something that happens.
I personally didn't find the plot line of that situation arising in the entertainment industry weird, because I can imagine that could happen. But like, I was not on board with the fact that it happened before either of them knew that they were not related to each other. And I feel like it would have had so much more tension, and it would have been an interesting and also less yucky if they also knew and they were still keeping the secret and then it happened. Whereas instead, we have them like, basically, they're kissing each other on the mouth, and both of them are like, oh my god, I've had feelings for my half-brother, my half-sister, like, I'm sick, and I'm a freak. Like, I was like, oh, why are you torturing these two people for no reason?
You can't really have a fauxcest love line without them having feelings for each other before they know that they're not really related.
I guess, but I kind of wish that they hadn't kissed before they knew that they weren't related.
Yeah, that was a wasted kiss that way.
Yeah.
Part went a little bit long. I would have liked for them to find a little bit early. Also, and this is one of the inconsistencies in the show that I felt like was missed, was that at one point when the director of the company is asking Joong-hee, it's either the first or the second time he asks him, you like her, don't you? You like your manager? And he says, no, she's my sister. No, but really, she's actually my actual sister. And then later on, that same director is like pushing them together for the sake of the variety show they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, nobody had ever told him that it wasn't Joong-hee's real sister. Like Joong-hee and Mi-young knew at that point, but nobody told the director, so I felt like it was really strange for him to be pushing the love line when, as far as he knew, nobody ever told him that she wasn't his sister.
Yeah.
I don't remember this part, because I watched it while it was airing, but yeah, the whole thing of, like, who knew what secrets and what was going on, sometimes it got a little bit confusing.
No, I don't think the director knew that she was his sister, because I think they were all, it was more of a sort of general dongsaeng, not like my real sister. I don't think they actually took his word for it, because everybody thought he was a single child.
Because he said, she's my dongsaeng, and the director said, yeah, she's younger than you. Of course she's your dongsaeng. And he's like, no, she's my actual sister.
No, I remember that, but I don't think he still took him seriously, because there was no, like, they didn't linger on the director's face or something, they just cut to another scene. So I don't think
so you think he didn't actually believe him?
Yeah, I don't think he believed him. I think he just thought he was just saying it. So, because this director has been used several times to bring these two together, and yeah, so...
I thought that it was because he did believe him, and he thought since they're siblings, it won't cause any scandals for them to be hanging around together, and it's like an easy way to get rid of the rumors and stuff. That's what I thought.
Really?
But he was pushing an actual love line for the variety show because the ratings weren't good, and they were trying to raise the ratings. So at least he was wanting the audience to believe that they actually had romantic feelings for each other.
Okay, but you're talking about like the drama movie director who was pushing for the variety show, but it was actually the one who he confessed to that this is my sister was actually his boss, like the director of his company.
Right.
So it's a different person who's doing each thing.
But they did have a fight about it. Yes, originally he was fighting with the director of the variety show, but and the drama. Mm-hmm. But then later he and the company director had a fight about it, and the company director was saying, "Why couldn't you just go along with it?"
Oh, right. Okay.
Just gone along with it. You punched him. Why didn't you just go along with it?
Yeah. But I mean, from his perspective, it's all about reducing the bad media coverage. He doesn't seem to care too much about anything else. So,
like incest would be a pretty bad media coverage. I just felt like it was just the fact that we're kind of arguing over the different perspectives of it shows that it was not that whole thing wasn't written very clearly.
Yeah.
It wasn't clear, you're right. Yeah, it was kind of...
What the writer really focused on was giving us lots of angst from Joong-hee. And Joong-hee did angst really well. I felt so bad for the guy. It was just, he was traumatized and I was traumatized for him. It was really sad.
Yeah, I was also like resentful on his behalf. And I think this is also part of the reason why I was mad that it took so long for the parents to tell him is because, like, I mean, they didn't know, but I was just watching him suffer and, like, be in love with his sister and, like, try to, like, go to the psychiatrist and, like, put his bad thoughts and locked up in this little box, poor thing. And, like, I was just like, you don't have to suffer so much for so long. If somebody would just tell you the truth, poor guy.
But I appreciated that he didn't keep Mi-young in the dark for too long. Like, the moment he realized that she was going through the same thought process that he was, he came clean. And that was, like, one of the better moments.
That's true. Yeah.
I love that.
True. He asked her to wait, but he didn't, like, not tell her and ask her to wait. He was like, he's not actually my father, but just give me some time. So at least she kind of had that information to sit with, so she couldn't,
Yeah.
so she didn't feel like a monster.
Yeah, she hadn't reached the need to find a psychiatrist right now level yet. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Those two were cute together, but like
They were very cute.
I kind of wish I started the show already knowing that they were dating in real life, and I kind of wish I hadn't known
they
that.
were already dating. I thought they started dating after the show.
No, but LollyPip started the show much later, right? Just like
I didn't start watching the show until January.
Ah.
Oh,
So
interesting. That's definitely a different angle, because I remember when I found out, and I was like, oh my gosh, so exciting.
I know, like that's how I felt. Flower Boy Ramen Shop was my very first drama, and then found out later that she was dating Pillar in real life, and that was such a fun, realization.
Yeah, and then they got married, and they were so cute.
I know.
I love them.
Yeah.
So what did you think about the ending and the way they wrapped up the whole, like, exposure of the secret and the redemption of the parents
Oh
and
my
how
God,
everybody
there was
kind of...
so much wish fulfillment there. It was just... it's just all candies and lozenges and stars and yeah.
I don't have any complaints with how they wrap things up. I have complaints that they waited till the last 2 episodes. You had 52 episodes. I felt it was really unrealistic to expect that we handled the identity theft trial and then also the murder trial, like in the space of apparently what felt like.
Yeah, that was kind of... It was rushed, and it's not like they didn't have time.
Yeah, they had plenty of time. They should have started that sooner. They should have shortened up the does Joong-hee know the truth, told him sooner, started that whole, everybody finding out about the truth about the family. Felt like 10 episodes.
Yeah, and I think there was also like a really long stretch where like the parents knew and they had told Joong-hee and Joong-hee knew, but then they were like, just give us some time before we tell the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was stretched out a bit long, and then like Hye-young found out, and then even after she found out, there was like a long stretch of time before the other kids found out, and I was just like, you could have squeezed this a little bit shorter, and spent that time on like the court case and the police stuff and the the murder and all that.
Really? Because I thought if they had chosen to do that, most people would have complained a lot, because they prefer watching these emotional sort of tossing and turning moments more than court proceedings and dealing with the police and all of that stuff. I think they just put it in one episode pretty much because they wanted to show the how each character dealt with this revelation. Like all of the kids dealt with it differently.
They could have dealt with it differently at the same time.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing that they managed to wrap it up without major, like, serious inconsistencies in the space of 2 or 3 episodes. Like, it's kind of amazing that they managed not to make some huge mistakes because they did rush it so badly at the end.
I think that was also because they extended it by 2 episodes, and because it was getting such good ratings. And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's pretty obvious that the mother's cancer storyline was what they chose to fill those extra 2 episodes with.
Yeah.
But then, like, that took up so much emotional time and space, and just, like, plot space, that they couldn't just, like, gloss over that because, like, she almost died. So then they had to kind of push the legal stuff kind of into a shorter amount of time at the end, I think.
Well, why did they suddenly put that in there?
Because it got a 2 episode extension. I think that's why they added that. I don't think they would have had that to begin with.
I just think they had plenty of other things that they could have focused on that were not brand new plot lines.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. That cancer plot line was totally... It's like, hey, it's a weekend drama. How can we not have a cancer plot line? Put one in.
Yeah, that was the one, like, disappointing return to tropes for the family drama that was not... I like that the fact that she didn't actually die, and it led to more, like, forgiveness and healing. But at the same time, like...
She didn't have cancer. She didn't even have cancer.
Oh, yeah, she had a tumor, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it was a non-malignant tumor that she had to go to the hospital and get surgery for. But, like, still.
I guess it was a kind of subversion. Hey, you were expecting cancer, but we just gave you a tumor instead. And she's not dying.
Yeah. Like, couldn't they have given her appendicitis or something? Like, she still had to go get surgery, but it doesn't have these, like, overtones of, like, possible death and, you know, it was... Because even if she had appendicitis or something, they still could have, because she heals her relationship with, I think, Yoo-joo, or, like, there's something that happens, that there's an encounter at the hospital. It's been a while, I'm sorry, I can't
So the usual thing was she was the only one who knew about the surgery. The mom didn't tell her family. She just said, I'm going on a holiday with my friends, because at that time the trial was about to happen. Yeah, so she didn't want, like, I think her surgery happened a day or two before the trial date. So she was like, I don't want to make anyone tense, so I'm just going to pretend that I'm going on a holiday, have the surgery, and then come back. And
I was more mad at that, to be honest. The fact that she didn't tell anyone.
Yeah,
and I expected them to not find out.
And also put the burden on Yoo-joo to lie to her family, because that if Yoo-joo had continued to lie, everybody would have just hated her for not telling them.
Yeah, exactly. And they wouldn't have forgiven her the way they would have forgiven her, like one of the kids, because she's an outsider.
Exactly. I mean, they would have been fine with mom. Mom went for a surgery, but they would have been like, you outsider, traitor person, we'll never trust you again. So, that was
unfair.
Yeah. They had quite a few moments, like the parents, they were not, like they brought up really good kids. Here's the thing, these two, somehow they managed to bring up kids who were grounded, intelligent and good of heart, but they were not very good people themselves, the parents, if you think about it.
Yeah, that was one of my issues as well. And I think it's why I had higher expectations from them on certain, like, ethical questions, where, like, I might have been more willing to let it go in another drama, where I was like, you raised your kids with so many, like, good, high moral principles. And you can tell, because in the beginning, they have a lot of these types of conversations where they're like, and even like Hye-young, she says, like, you know, I respected you so much to her mother, like, you taught me all these things. And so then I was like, it seems weird that they would still have this, I don't know, I didn't completely buy it 100%.
Yeah, so they didn't actually show us much of the consequences, the actual fallout. Like, think about it, one of the major things that never got touched upon and that kind of bothered me was everyone in the country apparently knew about Joong-hee's relationship with his family, right? The entire court case was being played out in the open. Now, no matter that he's not actually related to Mi-young's character, the moment it gets out that he's dating Mi-young, that would be a huge scandal. Regardless of the fact, like, he was living in that family believing that she was his sister. That in and of itself is a taboo. You thought she was your sister and now you're dating her? What does that mean? How sick can you be? That's an inevitable gossip headline.
Yeah, and not only did he think that she was her sister, she also turned out to be, like, the daughter of the man who, like, you know, took on his father's identity. Yeah. Which already people were like,
I think it was very strange that they pitched way bigger of a fit over Hye-young marrying someone whose mom they didn't care for.
Yeah.
Than the fact that these two people lived together for months thinking that they were blood related.
Yeah, that was strange.
And the parents were perfectly fine. This is happening.
I feel like that was less like what they thought the characters would do, and more a decision from the writers that, like, we already have so much angst going on in the plot line right now that, like, if we add this extra angst on, it's going to be too overwhelming.
Nobody found it weird. Like, not one family member went like, wait, didn't you guys just spend the last 3 months thinking you were siblings? Seriously? Right now you're going to start dating? What? Not one person.
Well, I'm not saying that it makes sense. I'm just saying that was probably the thought process behind doing that from the writing perspective.
But it's another argument for why they should have wrapped up the fauxcest thing sooner, because then they could have explored that a little bit more. Because I was kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
And then they waited way too long to start their storyline, like, in earnest. You know, like, their actual, like. Because they're kind of like friendship and getting to know each other, and then it kind of, like, stalled for a long time while all this other stuff was happening. Yeah. And then once all this stuff started to really get in high gear with him finding out what happened to his real father, and the confessing and the guilt and all the screaming and stuff, then they started this romance plotline.
I can tell you exactly when their romance plotline finally took off again. It was episode 42. Okay, till then it had gone on.
Oh my
Someone put it
god,
on
so
ice.
late. Yeah, like, this should have happened around episode 30.
Also, because we were talking about the ending, how many fairy tale endings could they give these characters? Just think about it. Ra-young suddenly realized she had a talent for sales and instantly makes her into a huge corporation where she's a telemarketer. And their uncle, the completely good for nothing photographer, and his wife are suddenly making amazing pizzas and getting fundings and stuff.
And it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and then like the only fairy tale ending that I sort of was okay because she was so clever was Hye-young suddenly becoming the expert, the retrial expert when retrials hardly ever happen in Korea. So yeah.
I'm just gonna say that pizza that the uncle and aunt created sounded disgusting.
I agree.
Pumpkin or something nasty.
It was like pumpkin and beef or something.
And also the symbolism, okay? One of them makes a vegetarian pizza, the other one makes a non-vegetarian pizza, and they're like, you put it together, it's a perfect pizza, just like you're the perfect couple together. It's like, ugh.
It's very after school special. Yeah, they could have chosen to give one pairing a less than perfect ending. I think it would have been less ridiculous. But at the same time, like, I'm not really mad because I watched this drama because it gave me a lot of good feelings, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
It didn't bother me that much. I was like, oh, this family, oh. And then just, like, for the last, like, 30 minutes of the drama, I was just like, oh. And then, like, they wrapped up with that really happy, beautiful wedding for the parents.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, I'm gonna miss these people.
And with the jumping on her husband.
You could tell that, like, that last scene where they're just dancing, you could tell that, like, this cast of, like, actors, they just genuinely enjoy each other's company, and they had a lot of fun making this drama, and this was, like, kind of like their last, like, oh, we're not going to see each other after this, and they're just, like, having a party.
Yeah.
I wanted them to hit a little harder, though, on the arc of Joong-hee when he was at Joon-young and Yoo-joo's wedding at the beginning, and he felt very left out. And then by the end, you know, he was the officiator at the wedding. And even at Hae-young's wedding, he was not included in the sibling dance. You know, they were up there dancing and he was watching, and he was more part of the family, but he still was not one of the siblings. I wanted them to, I don't know, somehow show like, okay, now he's finally been fully accepted because he was involved in the whole thing.
Wasn't there a moment where they were like, come and be in the picture at Hyung's wedding though? Or was that, am I getting confused with somebody else's wedding? Was that the parents' wedding where he was included in the picture? Yeah, I feel like there was a moment where they were like, come and join us, you know? And then they included him, but I just can't remember when it was.
But by the end of it, when he was like in the dance and in the picture in the final wedding, it was just so natural for him to be a part of the family that I don't think they needed to, you know, press on it again. So yeah,
that's true. I don't know. I guess I wanted some sort of closure, maybe for Joong-hee, that okay, this is it. He is one of us. Maybe not in the way we expected at first, but I don't know. Maybe they didn't really need to do it. I agree that they didn't really need to do it because they had been accepting him for a long time. I wanted to show that he felt it. Maybe because there was that heartbreaking moment in the first wedding where he just felt so left out and he left the wedding. And I guess I wanted to see from him that he knew.
I kind of know what you mean in the sense that, like, there's that scene where his mother finds out what they've done and what the real truth is about his father and all this, and she comes and she's ready to, like, you know, have this really severe confrontation with them, and he stops her. And I think he's already forgiven them by that point, I think. Or he's decided that eventually he's going to forgive them. And so, like, in that conversation with his real mother, he does tell her kind of how much he loves these people and what kind of warmth they felt. And then, even though he was upset and he's going to be upset, like, he wants to be connected with them still. But I don't think that he had that conversation with the Byuns, or the Lees, actually. You know, like,
maybe I'm contradicting myself because I just said at the beginning that one of my favorite things about the show was that they didn't feel like they had to show these big dramatic moments. But then, I don't know, I guess I just wanted a little something.
No, I
don't
get
know.
that.
Not necessarily for not necessarily for character purposes, because I get that his character felt it, but just to tell me as a viewer that everything's going to be okay. Everybody is fully happy and a fully family. Fully a family.
Maybe it was partly just the mechanism of that legal stuff being wrapped up so close to the end, where we didn't really get enough breathing space of them after that as a family, maybe to get that feeling of like going back to the normal daily life that we loved so much about them in the beginning. But now with Joong-hee as also part of the family, and Yoo-joo is part of the family, you know, like the soccer player dude, whatever his name is part of the family too.
Too.
That's right.
It bothered me that he was not in hardly any of the final scenes. I'm just putting that out there. It bothered me when they did their big, like, all the men did their big, like, strut, go into the jjimjilbang together to all be, it's all the men of the family, and all the women were doing something, they were doing yoga, and all the men were going to the sauna, and he wasn't there.
Is it maybe because, like, their relationship hasn't gotten as serious as the other ones? Or
I thought so, maybe because I've read an article since then about marriage in Korea and how until you have, like, a wedding date, you're not necessarily considered one of your new family. And at that point, Joong-hee and Mi-young were engaged.
Yeah.
And they had a different situation when you look at it.
And you know how... sorry, go ahead.
They just weren't at that point yet. They were like, no, we're still dating and we're probably going in that direction, but we're not thinking about it yet.
Yeah, and especially like Hye-young, or no, sorry, that's her real name. Ra-young was very, like, he was all in. He was like ready to marry her on the spot, but she was like, whoa, like, slow down, dude. So I think she was the one that was kind of pushing him away, and so maybe like he had this feeling of like not wanting to overstep his bounds and being careful around her family, even though he was like totally ready to go to the sauna with them and like be one of
the around her family though.
Yeah, I really liked that scene early on when Yoo-joo is still evil and she's treating the sisters kind of crappy, and Joong-hee, and they go up to Joong-hee's room and like drink and talk about it, and he's like, we're going shopping, and he buys them all these amazing outfits, and they have this like movie star walk into the wedding. Yeah, it was so great.
I loved that, and then I also loved how you gave it to him at the end at the parents' wedding when she mentioned it.
Yeah, and then it's a joke, like.
Yeah, like enough time has passed and they've all been through enough, and Yoo-joo has reflected on herself enough that she's like, yeah, I kind of deserve that, you know, it's okay. That was funny.
That was her, I deserve that moment, but then also it was her, like, I also feel enough of the family that I can kind of give it back a little bit.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Until that time, she had mostly just been polite to all her sisters-in-law, but by then she was like, it's fine. I mean, I've been accepted enough that I can like poke fun at them and not piss anyone off.
Yeah, like a real sister.
I wanted some little, just something like Yoo-joo got for Joong-hee, that he's one of us.
Yeah.
Maybe the jjimjilbang.
Yeah.
Oh, the other scene that I really liked was when Lee Joon's character comes in and he has been like the oldest brother till now, and then now everybody knows that he's no longer the oldest brother. Now suddenly he is, Mi-young's boyfriend, I guess. So he's gone a couple of steps down. So now he has to figure out how to address everyone, and that's just hilarious.
That was very funny.
So he had to like totally figure out his place in the family all over again.
Yeah, the hierarchy. That was good.
And what a hard time he gave him about it. But that just showed how much they loved him, that they were giving him such a hard time about it.
Yeah. Yeah, like they're secretly grinning, but on the face that they're like being so stern and mean, and they're like snickering to each other about it. That was funny.
It's such a cute mirror scene from the beginning when he first came in and they all had to adjust to their places in the family going down, and then it was kind of like, it was like their turn to make him feel the way they had felt.
Yeah, but with the reversal that in the beginning they genuinely resented him and now they actually love him, which was heartwarming. Yeah.
It was a small moment, and I don't even remember exactly where it happened in the show, but one of my favorite moments, because for me the whole show is about Joong-hee. I just loved him and his whole, everything that he went through and everything that the family coming to accept him. And there was a point back when he still thought he was an actual son of dad, because up until then, every time he had walked in the house, he always just kind of walked in and just like stopped and looked to see where everyone was, and just like really comfortable. And then there's one moment when he walks in, and it's after he's moved out, I think. I can't remember exactly. But he walks in and they're all sitting around waiting for dinner and they're all just like, hey, come on over. And it was just this whole, like, a completely different feel to it.
Yeah.
And that gave me a real warm, fuzzy feeling at that moment.
Yeah, just regardless of the whole, issue of whether he's really related to them and whether he knows the secret and how guilty the parents feel, like just him going from being this like lonely actor who puts up a really brave front but is secretly like extremely lonely and insecure, and his only friend is his turtle, and like he goes home and he like obsesses over his food because he's so like he has no one to take care of him, going into this like loud, bustling, messy house and like being really uncomfortable, but at the same time, like, just loving it and just loving how not lonely it feels, and seeing them become a family was just really, it was lovely. It was really nice.
Yeah, the food thing, it's interesting you mentioned the food thing, because I did notice that at the beginning, the very first meal he ever had with the family, and he was talking about, I don't eat this, or I only eat that this way, or, and they were all just kind of looking at him like, seriously, just eat it.
Yeah.
And later, when, I'm trying to remember the exact scene, but somebody says something to him and it's about food, and he's like, I'm not a picky eater.
And also
it was a good how much they had changed him from being this like super picky, everything has to be exactly my way or I'm not happy, to I'm here, it's all good,
Yeah. And there was this one scene talking about food and Joong-hee where like it's his birthday, and I think, if I can remember correctly, he has a specific type of breakfast that he always eats, or he doesn't eat breakfast.
Yes.
There's something. But they make him that breakfast meal that they always make for all the kids. And it's like, like the seaweed soup and all that. And he's like eating it, and he's like,
and he's crying.
You can tell he's like about to, he's crying, or he's about to cry. And he's like, no one's ever made me this, on my birthday before. And you're just like, I'm crying. You're crying. Everybody's crying. It's so good. But you can see that moment and how much it means to him, and they can also see how much it means to him, and it's just so.
Even the food that he doesn't, it wasn't just that nobody had ever made it for him, it was that he actually doesn't like it.
Yeah, he doesn't like it.
I don't eat it because it's slimy, I don't like it. And they were like, just eat the soup. And so he did, and it was just like, it was his submitting to, this is what I do, this is what you do when you're part of a family, but also, oh my God, I'm part of a family.
Yeah.
Like, it hit him all.
But that's
levels.
That's
it's
exactly
so
what I'm talking about. Like, if the dad hadn't lied about being his father, then he never would have had that family experience. If he had grown up as a little boy whose father had just died in this freak accident in a bar, then he would have just been a little boy unhappy about, his mom and her series of husbands, and he would have just been an unhappy boy that just would have grown up into probably an unhappy man, which he was when he met this family. It was by being part of this family that he grew into someone who self-reflected, I guess, and grew as a person. So, yeah.
That's true, and if he didn't think that he had that blood relationship with them, he wouldn't have kind of forced himself out of his comfort zone in the same way. Like, oh my gosh, I hate this, but my dad is telling me, so I'm just gonna like try anyway. That's a good point.
So that was good. There were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. The parents treating the older brother, the way they were initially treating him, like they tried to help him. Like, he was studying for years. All of that stuff was fine. But at certain moments, it felt like the older brother was a bit ignored. And I guess Hye-young and even Joong-hee were given more importance in the family. Do you think that was done deliberately, or was it just incidental? Like, that was not where the plot was going, because that was never actually dealt with. Like, eventually he got his job and the parents were happy and that just went on that way. I thought that they were going to deal with Joon-young, the older brother's feelings of inadequacy in some way, but then they did nothing with it. He just got his job and then went on to live a salaryman's life.
But I mean, I feel like they did address it, if I'm not remembering it incorrectly.
I'm trying to remember exactly that, and I agree. He went from being the only thing that gets me any respect in this family is being the eldest, because he was the least professionally accomplished. He hadn't done anything. He'd been studying for the exam for years, but at least he had that. He had that first son status, and then he suddenly didn't have that first son status. And not only that, but then all of a sudden his father is doing all of these things with Joong-hee and not spending any time with him. And but there was a moment, and I'm trying to remember, there was a moment when he did sit down with his father, and it was just the two of them eating together.
Yeah,
and
so I
cried, Joong-young cried, and he told his dad how he felt.
Yeah, because I
don't remember
exactly the I think his mom kind of, like, he was kind of down, and his mom noticed that he was down, and she asked him what was wrong, and they talked about it, and then the mom talked to the dad, and she was like, I know you're doing all this stuff to for Joong-hee because you feel like he didn't get it, and you feel guilty about what you have done, and you want to make it up to him, but, like, just don't forget about your real son, and the fact that, like, he's watching and he's feeling bad. And so, like, I think then the dad kind of said, like, you want to have dinner with me, or you want to have drink, and then they sat down, and then he talked about his feelings, and then they kind of...
That's what it was. Yeah. The meal, I think the meal I'm remembering where he cried was with his mom.
Okay, yeah. So, I was happy with that, the way
By the way, Jin-woon, I absolutely love him. I first saw him in Drinking Solo in 2016. Was the first time I'd ever seen him in anything, and I just thought he was great. And
the actor who plays the oldest brother?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Min Jin-woon, he was in Drinking Solo. He was the kind of nerdy teacher that was always doing the bad impressions, and showing up to work dressed as different characters.
I didn't watch that show. But,
horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen him before this, but he did a really good job with his character. He was able to, like, do that pathetic loser while still being lovable. He was able to balance that really well. Yeah. Like, he just was so genuine and sincere.
You should watch Drinking Solo, but number one, because he's in it and he's adorable in it, but also because it explains a lot about the whole what it's like to study for the civil service exam, and how people dedicate years and years and years of their life to this exam that's practically impossible to pass, and how it just runs their whole life. It's a great show.
Yeah, it's definitely on my list.
It's worth it just for Key, I'll be honest.
I just love him as a person and as, like, a personality in general. He's so great.
You should watch Drinking Solo for Key. Plus, he sings Drunken Confession in it, and it's incredible.
I love Key. There was that, thinking about Shiny makes me sad now, but, like, there was that, they did this variety show called One Fine Day, I think, where they, like, all five of them just traveled all over, and the camera just kind of followed them, and, like, Key was definitely the star of that. He was hilarious.
He was starting to become a regular in Master Key, the variety show, and then they totally ruined Master Key. And I think his last show on it was just like 2 days before the bad thing happened, and then they took everything that was great about the show and totally made it like it into a wannabe Running Man, and then people quit watching it. Pointing, because I was hoping he was going to be a regular, because he is hilarious.
He is so funny, and he's so charismatic.
He has got the sassiest mouth I've ever seen on anybody, and I love him.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that he's probably going to take a break from TV for a while, but
yeah,
hopefully whenever he does come back, he'll get some good roles, because he deserves them.
Anyway, tangent.
No, it was a good tangent.
You guys know about the news bit that came out a few weeks ago about Lee Joon, right? Like the fake news that they were publishing?
Yeah.
About him trying to commit suicide and stuff?
That I did not hear.
Yeah. Okay.
They came right out and said, no, that was not at all the case. And it was I don't remember the exact
So
things that people were saying, but
yeah, so what happened was that some media outlet came up with this headline saying that Lee Joon had tried to slit his wrist and he was shifted to a certain, I don't know, you don't call them departments, what do you call them? Some army
that's right.
group where, you know, for people who need help,
Like a
who have
therapy.
issues. Yeah, kind of like a therapy
Like a-
group, like green
Yeah.
something. And then this got out, and without verifying this claim, other media outlets picked it up and kind of spread it all over the net. And obviously, his fans were super concerned. And then his agency was like, "Wait, what are you talking about? We contacted his family. Nothing of the sort happened. This is just complete made up stuff." And then, yeah, obviously his family was distressed, and then he released a statement. He does have anxiety disorder, but he did not try to commit suicide, so that was completely fake. It just the reason I bring it up is
talking about bipolar too. That's been known for years. I think it was kind of expected that there was going to be something because there have been a couple of high profile suicides in the entertainment industry just in the last couple of months, and then because Lee-Joon has he's never hidden the fact that he has, some mental illness going on. And then the fact that he also just went into the military, I was actually kind of expecting, I wasn't even surprised when I heard the news about that, because I thought, well, yeah, of course there's going to be something like that about him. But I also, didn't really believe it was true either.
I found it interesting how this parallels what was actually going on in the show. Jun did hit it bigger after Father is Strange, right? Like, he wasn't as big in the beginning of 2017 as he definitely was by the end of it. So suddenly he was newsworthy, and that was kind of paralleled what happened in the drama itself. So found that interesting.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, the show did a good job in general, although there were some smaller things that were kind of off sometimes, but in general they did a good job of portraying actually a surprisingly varied amount of societal issues, but without making it preachy or boring, or they had a lot of humor. It was very realistically done, but they made some really good I guess they had a lot of good teaching moments without actually trying to teach,
Yeah.
I liked that.
I agree.
And wasn't it kind of amazing how this particular format of weekend drama, it's always very family oriented, right? So this drama was definitely about a family staying together, but many of the traditional values of these kind of dramas, this writer took and kind of subverted.
Right, exactly.
Most of the women, for instance, the choices they made were not at all what traditional leads in these dramas make, and they kind of for instance, Hye-young choosing to live in with Jang-won, for instance, was she apologized to her parents for lying, for hiding the fact, but never for actually choosing to do so. And I love that the drama didn't prove her wrong. The drama kind of backed her up on this. The writing supported her point of view. That she might have been wrong for hiding it from her parents. That kind of subterfuge was just not not in her upbringing. But on the other hand, she knew how her parents were going to react, and she acted exactly like most kids act, knowing how their parents would react to something that they really want to do. In Hye-young's case, when she got found out, she felt guilty about it, so she figured and what I liked about her was that she was not, she was stubborn and she was confident, but not to the point where she would willingly cast away her family and kind of walk out just because her needs were not being met.
Yeah.
She would not do that. She would try to explain her point of view again and again and again. And I like this, that they repeatedly had conversations. It wasn't one decisive conversation that, made up anybody's mind. They had, I think, 3 or 4 conversations over the space of several weeks that finally convinced her parents that maybe, this was not the worst thing ever. Her dad started off with, "Oh my God, what? No!" And then he ended up with, "Maybe this was not such a horrible thing to happen."
Yeah, and there were, and it was
Ra-young too.
Go ahead.
Ra-young has an interesting storyline too in regarding to marriage, where she meets this guy who has never dated before, and they start a relationship. And he was so cute the way he was like, he fought it so hard, but once he was in, he was in.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, you know, he was ride or die.
Okay, and
At that point.
as a total aside, this is like totally catnip for me. When you have a character like this who's so completely into the girl, and even if he has like no experience, he just kind of puts all his feelings out on the table, and it's super irresistible. So yeah, I know he couldn't act very well, but I didn't care. His character was just
he was such a puppy.
Yeah.
Then she finds out he's actually a tribal, and she's like. And then and then you have the typical, okay, a rich parent finds out that their son is marrying is into this poor girl, and he brings her in, and he says there will be no marriage, and Ra-young says, yeah, right.
I love how she dealt with his dad. That was amazing.
I love that was her response. That she was like, yes, sir, absolutely, I am with you on that. There will be no marriage. And I just thought. I mean, she completely disarmed him, and you could see how hard he tried to fight against liking her, but, you know, he couldn't help it because she was just totally like, she didn't push back like he thought. She just was like, yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, sir. I agree. And he just didn't know what to do with that. It was so cute.
Yeah. And also like, she was kind of the immature one throughout the whole drama, but then like once he insulted her parents, and she wasn't, like, too bothered by anything he said, but then she was like, don't talk about my parents. She's like, I don't care about anything else. You can break us up. I'm not interested in marrying your son, but, like, don't talk about my parents. And that was, I was like, yes, she's also wanted this family.
And she stood up for her parents after finding out what her parents had done. And she was, like, really sort of torn up about it, but she wouldn't tolerate anybody saying anything about her parents. So, that was...
Yeah. That's one of the things that...
How they could do whatever they wanted about each other, but whenever any opposition came from the outside, I mean, they totally circled up the wagon. Yeah. And, you know, and that was what was so great about that family was you just knew that no matter what happened, they were always going to have each other's back. They were always going to take each other's side.
Yeah. And I feel like also, like, you were to circle back to what you were saying about Hye-young and how she kind of leads the rest of her siblings, and she sets a tone for everything, and her character is so consistently, like, both very tough and very convinced that she's right and willing to convince everyone else, but at the same time she's so loyal that she's already decided, like, she decided a long time ago, like, I'm never going to abandon my family, and I'm always going to be there for them, even if we, like, fight or whatever, but, like, she has decided. And so all of her siblings kind of look up to her, and they have also kind of taken on that same, like, you know, it's all of us against the world, no matter what, and we'll just work on our issues, but we're always going to stick together.
That's just the main thing I loved about that whole family was that was never any question. There was never at any point when you ever felt like anyone was in danger of not being part of the family anymore.
Yeah. It was really refreshing in a family drama because usually there's always like one estranged kid or like an estranged dad or some kind of estrangement being threatened to happen, or like one of the parents is like always like you're being disowned because you're marrying the wrong person. Like you always kind of have that hanging over everybody's heads. But you're right, there was no danger of that.
I think covered everything.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end. Just does anyone have any concluding thoughts that they'd like to share?
I want this writer to write more of these family dramas. He, or is it she? I'm not entirely sure. But this particular writer, Lee Joon, had also written Ojakkyo Brothers. And You're All Surrounded, both of which I really like. So I want this person to write more of these big family dramas.
So actually, I forgot this while I was watching it, and it is, I think it's a woman, but I had forgotten that one of the reasons I wanted to watch this was because it was by the Ojakkyo Brothers writer, and I didn't really like You're All Surrounded as much, but there's this old daily drama from 2005 called Strong Geum Soon, which had like, I don't know, 120 or 160 episodes. They're like short, but still, it was very long. But I remember I watched it like a few years ago and I loved it. Like it was a daily drama, but it was so good. And I think I wish that it was available online now. It's not, but it's like a really young Han Hae-jin, I think, and Kang Ji-won and their story.
Huh.
And it's just the story of her like journey, and it's just so good. And it's the same way, like it's just such a realistic and loving and wonderful depiction of like family relationships and in-law relationships and that whole dynamic. So yeah. I love this writer.
I'm actually surprised to learn that Korea has daily dramas. I thought this was the 16 episode thing or the 50 episode thing was what they did.
Oh no, there's daily dramas that will run for like months, and they come every single day, I think Monday to Friday, and it'll be like 23 episodes.
What?
And they tend to air I think they air in the morning, and they're stereotypically like very mukjang. They're all about like, evil scheming mother-in-laws and like, birth secrets and murder and those kind of things.
Okay, so that's like the Saspo serials here.
I said they're basically soap operas.
Yeah, they're soap operas, yeah.
Yeah, they're basically that stereotype that everyone thinks of when we say we watch Korean dramas. It's that.
Really? I've never watched even one of these. That's so interesting.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend them, but that one was really good.
If you're watching Woohoo Waikiki, are either of you watching that?
I gave up after one episode. I'm sorry. It was not for me.
Okay, so it's like my favorite thing in the world right now. And the one character who is an actor, there's a scene where he's offered, they're laughing at him because he's offered his first recurring role in a drama, and he's all excited about it because up until then he's always just played extras in movies. And so he gets this recurring role in a drama, and he's really excited about it, and everybody's really excited for him. And they're like, so what's your character? And he's like, I'm the main character's driver in a morning drama. And they're like, oh.
Yeah. It's very like, it's like what housewives watch while they're ironing or like cooking dinner in the morning. So they're not very highly regarded.
No, they're not thought of very well. And then of course he ends up pissing off the writer and gets killed off in the first episode, so.
Oh dear. Well, do you guys remember that story about that Princess Aurora where the writer kind of like lost it and started killing off everybody until she even killed off the main character and she even killed off the dog?
But I remember listening to the Overlord podcast about it. And it was hilarious.
I think they wrote an article about it at one time too, but yeah. It's crazy. So yeah, that was a daily drama too.
Very funny.
So I think that's a good place to wrap it up. But this was so much fun. Thank you for joining us. We definitely have to do this again. So the next time
I would love to do this again. This was a lot of fun. I was nervous that once I get talking, then I'm good.
No, you were great. You had so many interesting things to share.
Thank you.
It was good having you on. Paroma, any thoughts?
I'm so happy we did this finally. I've been wanting to talk about this drama for so long, and yay! To our listeners, like Paroma was marathoning this, and so she would text me every time she had like something to say, and like after like the next one day she was watching like episode 25, and then like the next day she was like, "What happened in episode 42?" I was like, "Whoa, what is going on?"
I find it when I had a couple of weeks where I didn't have a second drama to recap, so I had a lot of time on my hands. And I think I watched the whole thing in like 2 weeks.
Wow. See, I watched it kind of week to week, but I enjoyed kind of watching you guys relive the experience in such a short time.
Yeah.
I did mean to say at one point that, we got talking and I forgot to say it, but that as far as drama moms go, I mean, Kim Hae-suk.
Yes.
Is absolutely my favorite. She is ever since I saw her in I Hear Your Voice, but still makes me like makes my throat.
Yeah, she's always so good.
And she was so wonderful in also in Marriage Not Dating. She was the rich mother-in-law character, but she really really changed by the end of that one too.
She was really good in that as well. Yeah, I did not expect her character to have such an interesting development and arc in that drama. I thought she was just going to be a stereotype, but yeah, she was really good. I also really like the one who passed away, but she plays the mother in Ojakkyo Brothers, She was also very good. I think she was also the mom in like My Name is Kim Sam-soon. But yeah, she, you know, rest in peace. But she was amazing.
Yeah. There's a lot of really, really. That's the thing that I try to tell people when I try to what I do for a living and explain it to them, and they're like, "Well, yeah." The even the recapping part of it, but they definitely don't understand what I'm recapping. And I try to explain to them, this is not like, people hear Korean drama and they think, oh, it's just a fluffy little silly, you know, they don't expect them to have the depth and the talent that they have.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And I sometimes, I usually tell people I'm a writer, and they're like, what do you write about? I'm like, Korean dramas, and they just give you that face that like...
I say I'm a freelance blogger, and then that's the first thing I always ask about. Oh, what do you blog about? And it depends on how much I want to get into it, but sometimes I'll just say, oh, you know, see it television.
Yeah, sometimes I'll also say television and movies.
And you're like, where it gets weird, so bear with me here.
Yeah. No, it's also because media coverage, and we're going into a whole other topic, but usually when anyone covers this whole Korean drama phenomenon and how popular it is among English-speaking people, they usually refer to them as South Korean soap operas. So, you know.
Yeah, and that's not it at all. That's what I keep telling them, but they have soap operas. That's not it. It's like a mini-series.
Exactly.
Is how I describe it. It's like a mini-series that goes on for about 8 to 10 weeks and tells a little story. And then you try to describe, oh, well, I love this though because this, and then you're halfway through the description and you're like, oh my god, this sounds like the most stupid plot ever.
So what it is, like sometimes the premises are so over the top, and you know,
like try describing Hwayugi to anyone. Okay, so there's a monkey god,
yeah,
pig god, and then there's a zombie. I mean, it's just like you just lose people, and you're like, no, but really, it's really good. You just have to trust me on this.
I mean, honestly, it's not that much weirder than, like, a high school teacher who secretly has a meth lab in his wherever, but, you know.
Yeah, that's true. But I have a couple of people at my weekend job that actually do get recommendations from me every now and then. There's one guy that he's watched Save Me on my recommendation, and he just was like, that is one of the best things I've ever seen in my whole life. Nice. You know, and so sometimes I can get people to watch stuff. It just kind of depends.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I have zero interest, no interest whatsoever in any of it.
Yeah, but you know, right now it's become a kind of a litmus test for me. If I tell you the story of a Korean drama, how seriously can you take me after that? It's kind of like that. You know, you don't have to end up loving the drama, but if you start making faces halfway through, then I'm done with you.
Yeah, it's true.
Adversity helps you pick your friends better.
Speaking of character development, my father, when I first started doing this 4 years ago, which makes me feel really old, and I was only doing one episode a week, like, you know, like everybody does. And I was also job hunting at the time, and he kept telling me to quit doing this because it was taking up my time. And I kept telling him it doesn't take that much time. It's not keeping me from getting a job. There's been several times over the years where he has tried to get me to quit. And now it's my primary job. And I have a weekend job that I do for, you know, because they have good insurance. But my dad called me a couple of months ago, and he was like, you know, I just want you to know, and if you know anything about my father, he's one of those guys that is always right. But he called me up and he said, I just have to tell you that I'm really proud of you for not listening to me.
Aww.
I'm really proud of you for taking something that was just like something that a little hobby thing that you did for fun and making it into a job, and how much he said, I'm just proud of you for doing what you love. And I thought that was really sweet of him.
Yeah, that's really, yeah. Sometimes our parents kind of surprise us in like these really touching ways, and then you're like, they're my parents. Why am I surprised? They like raised me up till this point. Yeah, that's really heartwarming.
I still get choked up when I think about it. She said, I may not understand the thing that you're passionate about. She said, but I envy you your passion. And I thought that was really very deep.
Oh. Yeah, my dad also is one of those people who, like, he's like, you know, he's an engineer. He's kind of type A. he also
Yeah.
used to tell me, like, why are you killing yourself for this thing that when I first started recapping, it took me so long. He was like, why are you just like staying up all night? And he's like, this is not very important. You need to focus on like your real. And I mean, I'm starting to work more on my writing and write about more things and like try to, expand it a little more. And now sometimes he'll like read my, like whatever I wrote, even if it's about like a movie or something, and he'll be like, oh, this is really good. I'm proud of you. And I'm like, my dad, he doesn't normally say these things.
Oh.
So, all right. Thank you for listening. And we'll be back soon with our next long yak.
Yay! Bye!
And it's Anisa again. We hope you enjoyed that very long enumeration of the many reasons we love Father is Strange. Thanks so much to LollyPip for joining us. You should definitely follow her on Twitter at LollyPipKD. As always, you can find us on Twitter at a K-Drama Podcast and listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or your podcast procurer of choice. We'd super appreciate a review on iTunes as that helps people find us. And you can reach us via email at starsinOurPocket@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening. Bye!